Okay, so as I was starting this, I was sort of wondering how I should best go about this, but I have free time and I always like to teach people new things, so I decided to make a video for your educational purposes. It's always fun to have a video critiquing what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. So I realize that you do a lot of realistic animal drawings, but I've never actually seen you take like a picture of an animal next to your drawing. I've seen you directly, I think you use calc layers, like very thin. I saw your technique and it's a good technique, but if you want to improve on your memory and your practice of anatomy, you have to be able to take the image, break it down to its elemental level, and then be able to recreate it. But it doesn't have to be perfect because it's a learning curve. I've been doing this for years now. But my biggest suggestion for someone who wants to learn anatomy, and you're still very young, is to look at images and really truly break down the face of whatever animal you're trying to practice. So I had drawn some lines on top of that, trying to break down the face of the animal at the most elementary basic level. So the face of the jaguar or panther, because I think these animals are panthers, is very round. It's not a blocky cat face. Like if you look at, see, it's bringing a lion here. It's bringing a lion. If I could find one, I guess picture of a lion head. Okay, here we go. This is a good one for educational purposes. Copy this guy, bring him in here. Okay, so if we look at the lion head, it's very angular. So I could draw these very straight lines and we'll get the basic geometrical composition of the lion. As you can see, the eyes always line up almost perfectly. So when you're drawing feline eyes, you want to be able to, like, it's harder traditionally, so I would best suggest using a ruler. But when you're drawing feline faces, you always want to make sure that the lines match up perfectly. So as you can tell, very straight lines will break down the basic geometrical composition of the lion's face. And as we take away these images, this is what we end up with, versus the jaguar, which is a lot rounder in comparison to what we got for the lion. So now we know the basic appearance of the jaguar face. If we bring back our image here, bring the opacity down. If we want to use a reference for what you've given me here, I'd first start off by obviously collecting a lot of reference imagery. So you can use Google, like very simple, let's go jaguar face. You can use Google. It doesn't, because you're not directly copying the images, you're using it for reference. It's not breaking any copyright laws that I know, at least. So we'll take, here's a side view, which is also useful. You want to get different angles of the subject you're working with. The body you have here is pretty accurate to what we're going to be doing, but we're going to have to cut down the neck a little bit since there's no, as you can see, the neck is a lot thinner. You have the neck starting at the sides of the face when it should actually start near the muzzle of the animal. Holy shit, that's big. Okay, high res. Bring it down a little bit. We're going to pop this one over here. And then because we also have a cub, we might want to get a jaguar cub or a lion cub. A small baby jaguar. They're so cute. I'd say, yeah, they're probably, it's young like this, I'd say, that we've got going on here. So you got some baby jaguars. Adorable. Okay. So, if I were to redline this, so as you can see, the ears you have going on here are much too angular for what we're looking at for feline ears. So I would start off by drawing a very round and using these angular lines that I have here. So starting from the ear, we want this very boxy, And change my brush here. I don't like the where's my soft round? Here we go. Very boxy lining for the head of the animal. So meets up at an angle here. Very angular top of the head. And then it goes down into another box on this side. So very, very, very boxy head. So playing with the angles, because you have the jaguar at the angle, obviously. I'm using this reference image to try and redline this as best as I possibly can. So the forehead of the animal will obviously have a little angle here, because the forehead isn't two-dimensional, obviously. There's a 3D effect, or 3D. You want to be able to render a three-dimensional jaguar. So starting the ears here, they're very much not angular. A jaguar ear will have this little bend in it, as you can see right here. It's a little, this sort of shape to it. It's definitely not straight. So we come back here, and we can add this little bend in the ear, which will render a much more realistic effect to your jaguar ear. And then obviously it has a little crop up to it, so we add that in. Then we could do the exact same thing to the other ear. Bring it out, and it has a little tip to it. And we have this right here. So for the eyes, I'm going to just block out your eyes here. And we will try to figure out where to, because the eyes are placed much too low on the animal's face. So taking our reference imagery, we can try and find out where we would put the eyes on this particular rendition of a jaguar. So being able to take a reference image and transfer the anatomy onto a custom pose is not something that's simple, that I expect you to be able to grasp just through this redlining that I'm doing. It takes a while to learn, so please don't feel bad if you don't get this on the first try. Again, it takes a very long time, and it's a very long process. So the nose here is placed much too low on the jaguar's face, because a jaguar has a very stocky, very short face, as you can see. Even when they're looking downwards, we're going to be able to see their jaw. They have a very large jaw, and that's a characteristic of the jaguars and felines in general. You could always see just a little bit of their lower jaw, because it is a very large lower jaw. So if we bring in our line here to follow with the rest of our anatomy and our imagery, I would place the nose relatively around here. And because your jaguar is looking down, I'm going to want to make the nose not as prominently large as we have here. It's very high here, as you can tell, because it's looking straight on. But if we have it looking downwards, the nose is going to be thinner. We color this in, we break this in right here. And another thing that I use to help me with the nose and the muzzle of a felines in general is this curved line here. It helps me decipher how large the nose bridge will be at the front end of the animal to help with shading. Then the animal is looking down, so we want the muzzle to be looking in this sort of way. As you can see, I'm following my general lines for the muzzle. Jaguars have a very large muzzle, so we could do this. Then we could draw the little muzzle lines here to help us for telegraphing later on when we're drawing the animal. And then I want to lower this one right here just a tiny bit. And then a jaw that we can see. If you don't include the jaw, it makes the animal look too, how can I word this? It makes the animal look too two-dimensional. You're not adding depth to the character, which is something that often gets lost when you don't completely understand anatomy. And even I'm still learning myself. Just trying to help you as best as I can here, because murals are tricky. So if we add the jawline right here. So looking at our preliminary sketch drawing on the side here, the forehead of the jaguar is going to start relatively over here. Since it's looking down, this one is looking upwards. So I draw the forehead line right about here, and this is where you're going to get shading if light is coming from above. So knowing this, I can roughly telegraph the eyes to start about here. And again, feline eyes are relatively hard to learn how to draw. But if you look at reference imagery, usually the top of the big cat eye, not the small cat eye, will be very straight. It's a very angular eye. It's very straight. So we can emulate this by drawing these two lines and make sure that the lines match up in a straight line. Like we want the eyes to be relatively on the same field. And then my technique that I use for drawing big feline eyes is you draw a circle within your lines. Because the eye itself is round, but they have eye ducts surrounding the eye, which gives the feline look. So draw a circle for the eye itself, and then surrounding it, we fill it in. And the duct travels downwards. And that's what gives the feline appearance to the eye. Do the same thing over here. As you can see, the duct will travel downwards. When the eye is at an angle, we're going to have to draw a little bit more of the duct on the side of the eye. It's for depth of field effect. So our eyes are relatively level. They're both at a pretty good distance from each other, looking at our reference imagery. This one might be a little bit too small, so I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger. Try to line it up as best as possible with the other one. Movement tools are crucial when working with eyes because they're difficult to get even when you know the anatomy. So I'm relatively happy with this one. Another thing that also helps me when I'm drawing anatomy is drawing the basic bone structure in the face of the animal. So felines have a jawbone here, and it juts off, and usually you'll be able to, when you're shading, there's going to be a little bit of shadows here because of that jawbone. So I'm just going to leave it like this. You want to be able to stay with very angular movements as you're drawing because it helps break down the overall look of the animal. So, drawing some nostrils here. Darken the lips. This is where the jaguar's head starts. Beautiful. Just trying out. Perfect. Alright. This is what I've got so far on for the face of your first jaguar. So, as you can see from my reference imagery as well, the neck is not that thick on the jaguar. It's very much, the neck starts right here. This is the shoulder, this is the neck section of the animal. The shoulder starts right here. It makes the neck appear larger, but this is just shoulders, and this is the neck, as you can see. So, if I were to take this, I would thin out this section right here. Thin it out to a relatively amount, and then we start the shoulders lower down. It's also useful to flip the canvas to see if our angles are still correct when because we want to change perspectives, because the eye gets tired and gets used to what we're seeing and we tend to confound mistakes. So doing this helps me see if I was able to transfer the anatomy on a readable basis for people who have never seen the drawing before. Because when it's your first time observing a drawing, you tend to see the mistakes a lot more than the artist does, because it's your first time viewing the subject. Okay. Seems okay, maybe make the eyes a little bit smaller. Yeah, okay. So we can flip it again. Now let's see if I can get... This reference is actually pretty useful right here for the general shape of the standing jaguar. So if you want to follow your red line, I'm going to make it a little bit thicker here because this is where the hindquarters would start. What I usually do when I'm drawing chests is I'll make the stomach of the animal sort of disappear right here. I can add some hindquarters right there, really simple hindquarters. Then taking what we see here. So you had the relative shape of the leg pretty down pat. I'm not going to change it too much. But instead of this roundness here, as we can see, there's a very sharp bone angle right there. So following the muscles, I would sharpen it out right here and bring it down. This is fine right here. And your paws are pretty okay as well. I'm just going to add a little bit more details to your paws. It helps to locate where the claws come out. Then we have our dew claw right here. No, not 5 toes. Okay. Yeah, it helps to draw the little claw marks on the toes right here. Gives you a more realistic effect to your sketch, and you can never add too many details to your sketch. That's never a problem. I'm just gonna see how my red lines. Okay, so my red line's looking pretty good so far. So bring it back here. Because you have the cub here, it's okay. We're just gonna. It's a clever tool to just be able to hide the anatomy, because no one wants to draw everything. But you have to make sure that you're showing at least where the other leg disappears. So as we have this little hole here to show that the leg still continues. And you want to be able to draw the musculature in the animal. Thin out the neck a little bit more. We might actually have to make the head a bit smaller. As you can see, this is the size of our head and our neck is not that large. So bring it down just a little bit more. Here we go. Maybe size down the head a tiny bit. Just so you can barely tell. Okay. Bring it right here. Center up right here. Okay. So you can also make the eyes look downwards. I'll draw some eyes in there. Make the eyes focus on the subject, and this is It's not the easiest thing to do. Like, I often have to go back and fix some things with the eyeballs because I often make them look cross-eyed. Like what I'm doing now. I'm just gonna add this so you can edit it out later. Just draw some eyes on there. A little bit cross-eyed, but you know, it's not that bad. And now for the cub. So our adult's fine at this point because your plants are gonna, and even if you really do not want to draw the anatomy, you can simply just like add some plants. It's freedom of artistry, right? So this is our body. This is our body, and it's going to follow like this. This can be fur if you want. Add some plants right here. This is our other hindquarters. I'm not going to bother adding some feet, but this is what our body would look like. Chest is right here. This would be the rib cage. How it follows down. Add some feet if I want to. I don't think I want to go to that level. Okay, so if we take the same concepts I used to make the adult, we can sort of make a cub-looking animal thing. I'm not very good at drawing baby animals, but I'm going to try my damn best for you. So I want to bring this side reference downwards so we can use it for drawing this little cub here. It's a useful tool in Photoshop, which you probably don't have because you're working traditionally, is this flip. We can even angle it so we have the side view of the jaguar. So you have the placements of the features on the face relatively well, and you even shorten the snout, which would be classic for a cub animal. But we'll try to make its proportions look as realistic as possible using this adult image because I can't really find a side view of a jaguar cub. Maybe we can use a little lion cub, but I think I'm going to be fine with this. So, side view. Nose bridge, very important. It's just a simple double curve. So we curve near the nose and we curve near the eyes. The nose on the side is very much just a triangle. So you could literally do this and you'll get this general shape of a feline nose from the side. This is what I use when I'm sketching. It's just literally an equilateral triangle. I'm French. The eyes from the side. Straight line to the top of the eye, the duct. The eye is very circular. Almost like a half oval from the side. And then we have a jutting brow right here. We have the bone right here, bone right here. The muzzle jutting out. And then we have our chin. This is where the face starts. So just the face of the jaguar. If you take away the reference imagery. This is what it relatively looks like at an elementary level. So we can copy this and apply it to the cub. A smaller brush size, 6. Okay. So tracing over our cub here. I often start with the nose, so we're gonna, oh, I need to go darker. Gonna draw our triangle right here, flat at the top, and curves juts down like this. Then we have our muzzle, or the snout should I say, jutting out. Curved line near the top of the nose, travels flat and then curves up and we get close to the bridge. And then we get our chin. So the face has lines to it. Always remember that. There's always a geometrical explanation for everything when you're studying anatomy. So again, I'm going to remove your eye. I'm going to remove this right here. Make the red line stand out as best as we can. let's start drawing the remainder of the features on the cub's face. So we have this little chin right here in our muzzle, and jaguars have a very dark line right here. I'm going to draw little muzzle lines, that's fine. And then we draw our ears. When we want something to look young, we draw the ears proportionally larger to the remainder of the face. Like, the ears here are relatively the same size. Let me see if I can trace over it and move it. So the ears here are relatively the same size as the ears over here. So you can see they're almost identical. So if we want to make something look younger, we take the ears and make them very large proportionally to the face. So where's the remainder of my red line? Where's the cub red line? Come on, here we go. Okay, right here. So I'll draw the eye. We want to place it very close to the brow ridge. So if we go right here, no, I want to hide this right here. Okay, thank you. We go close to, yeah, I'm gonna have to draw on this layer now. We want it relatively close to the brow ridge. So I often start with the angles in the eye. And then continue on with that. A very angular nose. Take our adorable little ears. And make them as large as we can. Oh, whoops, text. I didn't want to draw anything. Keybinds. Okay, so following what you did here, I'm gonna draw some large little jaguar ears. And then have them perk up like this. So you can see very fluid movements. And have them and what you did here, so you made the neck very, very large for the cub. As you can see, they have relatively small swim necks right next to their face. Like, this is where the neck starts and this is the back of the body. You could draw that like this. So it's very slim. This is relatively where the neck starts. So we want to be able to emulate this when we're drawing a baby jaguar. Small neck. Small neck and then a little shoulder blade right here. And make this a little bit bigger to give it a childlike appearance. There we go. Goddamn computer noises. Just give it a very tiny appearance. So our neck, we've established, is right here. The shoulder blades right there. So you made the back curve a little too much for a big cat. This is more what a domestic cat would look like. They sit very straight, but it's different for larger animals. So they don't sit with a very arched back. Their back is sort of a little bit more loose, a little bit longer than a domestic cat. So we're gonna, again, try to emulate this when we're drawing. And have their little feetsies. Their little feetsies like this. Big paws, again. Kittens have large paws in proportion to the remainder of their body. So I'm just going to draw them out just to illustrate what it would look like for if I was drawing this. Very, very large paws in proportion to the remainder of the body. Big, 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 big paws. Tiny legs, big paws. And you have a teeny tiny little belly, because these animals have little bellies. And I'm going to draw the hindquarters. So when I'm drawing hind paws, I usually draw the skeleton, should I say, of the hind legs. So for felines, you have this very long lower leg. So as you can see, the skeleton would start here. Here is the knee. Here is the ankle, and here are the toes. Very long. It's pretty much like a Z shape. So you have your hip, knee, ankle, toes. So hip connects to the back of the spine, knee, ankle, and toes. So I'm gonna fill this out with some musculature. And again, big paws. Have them jet over like that. Got a little hiney, little booty. Then you got the little cub belly. Cubs have large bellies. Any baby animal is going to have a large belly. And some big paws at the end here. And I kind of noticed that you wanted to hide the leg anatomy with a tail. And that is something that I used to do very often, but I highly suggest that you start practicing what the legs and hindquarters will look like. The more you practice, the better you'll find yourself being. Erase my eraser right here. So, try and make this as clean as physically possible for you. Because I am a messy sketcher. A little belly. So we can curve this back up just a little bit more, but not more than it ever needs to be. And then you can have your little tail here. Make these legs a little bit thinner. A little tail. Maybe curling around like this. Something that isn't too obvious that you're purposely trying to hide anatomy. Little jaguar tail. Make this a little bit longer right here. As you can see, I'm often going back and correcting some things by changing perspective, by this is the other foot, this is where the other foot is. Changing perspective, by going back and changing the way that I'm looking at the picture. So let's see if I can add a little bit of baby whiskers here. Maybe make the jaguar look happy since you're going to be doing real inside the school. Or panthers, should I say. A little bit of happy kitties. Get some little whiskers going. There's also the eye whiskers that you need to watch out for. Let me close the eyes here a little bit, give her a more maternal look to her. And add some whiskers. Yeah, I think I'm relatively done with this red line. We'll maybe fatten up the cub a little bit. Make him look super duper adorable. Give him a little bit more of a belly. Yeah, so that's relatively it that I got for you. Sharpen out those ears a little bit. Oh my god, they're so cute. Ah, okay. Alright, so I'm gonna hide the remainder of my sketches and send that over to you. Oh, that's bad. I can't do that. I gotta erase this. Hide the reference imagery. I'm such a messy person when it comes to sketching. Oh, can I merge these together? Cool. Awesome. So I'm gonna remove this. Remove this. And that is your red line, honey. I hope that you found this video useful, and I kind of thought I'd make it for you to help you out here a little bit, because I remember being your age, and I remember how it was to have these daunting projects, and I had people helping me out as well, and I wish I could go back and thank them because they were a huge help to my development. I'm going to send this off to you, upload the video for you. There you go.